You're live with BBC News. I'm pleased to say I'm joined now by Dean Amaney Jamal from the School of Public and International Affairs at Princeton University. She's also a co-founder and co-principal investigator of Arab Barometer. And what is fascinating is she and her team finished a survey of public opinion in Gaza on October the 6th, which just seems quite incredible that your research came to that conclusion the day before the attacks on Israel. Very good to have you with us. Tell us what your findings were, what you found out in that survey about how people living in Gaza particularly feel about Hamas.
Yeah, at the eve of these atrocities, what we found is that about 2/3 of Gazans had little or no trust in the Hamas government. They were losing faith in Hamas's ability to govern Gaza. About 72% said that there was widespread corruption in the Hamas-led government, among the ranks of the Hamas-led government. And only a quarter said they would vote for Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, if elections were held.
We always think of the population of Gaza as being very young. And did you find that these were feelings that people had across all age groups?
More or less. What we found is that there was slightly more support for Hamas among the youth population, but it was within the 5 percentage point sort of margin of error. So by and large, the conclusion is that adults and the youth were losing faith in the Hamas-led government at the eve of the attacks.
It is so nuanced. And have you found it frustrating watching the coverage, particularly when people in Gaza perhaps are portrayed as all having the same opinion and possibly in some media outlets of all being supporters of Hamas?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there was this rationale, almost hysterical rationale at the eve of the Gaza assault to sort of say that all the people of Gaza, even the babies and infants of Gaza, are going to be supporters of Hamas. We heard statements calling the Palestinians of Gaza basically uncivilized animals. More or less, they deserve to die. And the rationale of this sort of complete targeting of the civilian population, if you may, was justified based on the fact that the people of Gaza are supporters of Hamas, supporters of terrorism, are not supporters of democracy. I mean, we found that over 70% of Gazans want to live in a democracy. We found 54% of Gazans in favor of the two-state solution. We found that the citizens of Gaza are willing to live side by side with the state of Israel, and that to see these atrocities unfold as they did is just devastating and really unjust. It's going to contribute to the discourse of dispossession, of injustice, on top of the occupation, on top of an authoritarian Hamas government, where about 3/4 of the Palestinians were saying they could not express themselves freely against this government out of fear of retaliation. So you have the occupation and the Hamas-led government, the oppression of the Palestinian people in Gaza. 2.5 million people live in this very densely saturated space on Earth in what people have referred to as an open cage prison, an open air prison where they're caged in, and now they're just being bombed left and right. I mean, something has to give here. I also want to take the moment to say, of course, Israel has the right to defend itself. These arguments about Israel's right to self-defense and these atrocious atrocities against the Palestinian people are not zero-sum. It's not either or. There is something called counterterrorism special operations that can be enacted by the Israeli Defense Forces, but just the way the U.S. did it in Iraq in some pockets, that there needs to be more precision targeting where we don't see civilian casualties, women and children, bodies lying in the streets, bodies lying in the hospitals. Something has to give. And world leaders, including leaders in Europe, in the United States, have to step up to make sure that these atrocities don't continue. I mean, a ceasefire or humanitarian pause, whatever you want to call it, there needs to be a ceasefire or a pause just to get the humanitarian assistance into Gaza. What we're hearing from our contacts.
Can I just ask you, in this time that we have, if we can look beyond I know it's very hard to with what is happening at the moment, but is it possible from the research that you did to know what people in Gaza will want to happen next? Because Mahmoud Abbas has said that he will come in and help run Gaza, but people are talking about an Israeli occupation as well. Is it possible to know what the people of Gaza will want to happen when this ends?
Well, first of all, the people of Gaza want to make sure that they survive this, right? I mean, what we're hearing are that there's dead bodies laying in the streets as we speak. People are basically displaced and homeless. Sanitation problems, health problems. There's a lack of water. There's a lack of food. There's a lack of medicine. So if they survive this, they certainly don't want to live under Israeli occupation. For 75 years, the Palestinian people have said they do not want to live under this Israeli occupation. It's the longest military occupation in the history. It has to end. There were efforts 30 years ago for a two-state solution. Those have to be revived. Whether it's going to be the PA, Mahmoud Abbas, Fatah, or a technocratic government ruling Gaza, what the bottom line is, you have to give citizens of Gaza hope for a better future. You can't tell them, okay, you should be grateful that you weren't massacred, and now we're going to put you under occupation again, and we're going to bring you another authoritarian government.
And I mean, there has to be a change. Do they have any hope in their own leadership or in any leadership in the West Bank?
So right now, Gazans feel that they've been betrayed by all the leaderships, by the Hamas government, by the PA, because they have been living these grueling circumstances for decades now, and nothing has. And they feel betrayed by the international community. Who has seriously challenged what is happening in Gaza even before these atrocities? It's not like Gazans were living in Dubai and then all of a sudden we see this conflict and this devastation. This was, in our survey, we found that 75% said they could not afford to feed their children, their families. So this is a population that was on the verge of starvation, an impoverished population. You have 2.5 million people locked into this land with no room for upward mobility, no room for, they wait every day to receive the food trucks to be delivered so that from the international community, so that they can feed their children, that they can give their children milk. This is the story of Gaza and its devastation is not simply after October 7th. It's been decades in the making. And with all due respect, we have not heard anybody step up to say this injustice in the name of Israel's security or whatever you want to call it, it has to stop. There needs to be hope for Gazans in Gaza and not think about, oh, well, let's displace them. Let's move them into the Sinai. Let's create another sort of refugee camp in the Sinai. No, in Gaza, these children who are randomly born in Gaza have to have an opportunity for a dignified life.
And how important has it been for you living in America to keep portraying Palestinians as ordinary people with the same aspirations that people in America have, that do want to live these lives where they are respected, where there is some kind of dignity? Do you feel that so often they have been dehumanized?
100%. I mean, this is the ongoing challenge in the United States, where Palestinians are dehumanized, not only by the popular media, but by our public officials. I mean, look at what's happening in Congress. Look at what's being said by our representatives. Palestinians are animals. Palestinians will be deported. Palestinians should be caged. We should kill them all, right? We should kill all the Palestinians in Gaza. These are things that are coming out of Washington, D.C. It's despicable. It's just unbelievable that we have to do this. And remember, Queen Rania was on the airwaves with Christiane Amanpour, the Queen of Jordan, on CNN, basically pleading not only to United States leadership, but to the European leadership, to the EU, and saying, please remember, our children in Gaza are humans. They are humans. Please dignify their human sanctity. When you have the queen of the Middle Eastern country begging, almost pleading with the Western civilized leaders who are the champions of democracy and human rights that treat the Gazan children as human, there is something wrong with the world.
Dean Amaney Jamal, it has been wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us from New Jersey. Good to have you with us.